Hello and welcome to the Tifo Football podcast. I'm Joe Devine, and I'm delighted today to be joined by JJ Bull.
Hello, Joe.
John Mackenzie.
Nice.
And Ruben Pinder.
Wembley.
That's true. There is some Wembley chatter in today's episode because, of course, at the Pinder Palace, everything was made of crystal this weekend. And Steve Hankey didn't even write that. I just said that. Now, what did we talk about today? Liverpool are Premier League champions. We talked about that. We think it makes people happy, presumably. I don't understand. Dethroned Premier League champions Manchester City have made it to the FA Cup final. We talk about how they beat Nottingham Forest and also whether that's a good season or not. We don't really know. JJ made a very convincing argument against the privatisation of railways. I don't know that you were doing that, but you did do that. It involved snakes.
I don't know how I do it, but I know that I do.
We played the separation game with some lovely routes today. That was a fun one.
I forgot my own rules though.
You forgot your own rules, but it's fine. Don't worry about it. It won't happen again, will it, Ruben?
No,
it won't. Right. Man City play Crystal Palace in the FA Cup final after the Eagles sent Aston Villa to Mount Doom and out of the cup. That's one of Steve's.
It does remind me of one of my favourite topics, yes. Should have just gone the Eagles, mate. Just send the Eagles. The Eagles, Joe.
No.
It's empty. Real Madrid could be trophyless and Ancelotti-less in the summer. I mean, they will be one of those things. I mean, they definitely will be both of those things. We talk about that towards the end of the episode. But whether the cult of the individual that pervades modern football actually translates to success. And Power Rangers. We talked about Power Rangers as well. Then John talked about a pirate island, and we played Points Are Bad. And that was the end of the show, wasn't it? Yeah. Oh, and a quick note that next week we'll be releasing later in the day on a Wednesday, as opposed to the usual Tuesday AM time. Did I forget anything?
Don't know.
All good.
No? Yeah.
Should we get some references that are newer than the 90s?
Nah.
I didn't realise that the Power Rangers could combine.
I never watched Power Rangers.
Neither did I.
The Zord,
I think I might
the
have
Zords
been
can,
too young.
That's their whole thing.
Yeah. Do you know what's interesting about that, actually? Is that, maybe you've read about this, but like, you know how that show was cut from I think it was old Japanese footage. So they just filmed the American actors. They filmed all that to then cut to what the Japanese show had already done.
That's pretty cool.
It's pretty smart, reuse of footage.
Yeah.
So someone somewhere could be maybe recutting us, but with some other footage or something else.
Good punditry.
Yeah, maybe they'd make it better.
Go, John Mackenzie!
Go, John Mackenzie.
And then a huge version of John Mackenzie is there to analyse on a giant tactics board.
Yeah.
Really well.
He'd be the grey Power Ranger, wouldn't he?
The grey Power Ranger.
Yeah.
Like Gandalf the Grey, yeah.
What would you be? The pudding.
Pudding Power Ranger. The sticky toffee pudding Power Ranger, yeah. Guys, I'm coming. I just keep getting stuck to the pavement with my toffee suit. Yeah. Power Rangers was
somewhere
great.
Following a goose or something like that.
They banned it in my primary school because it
Being
encouraged...
a Power Ranger?
In watching the show, they wrote a letter to our parents and said, don't let them watch this show because it encouraged us to be violent.
You pretending to be them at break time and stuff.
Yes, yes, and at lunchtime, and sometimes during the lessons, And once a teacher was hospitalised, that didn't happen. Well, where else to begin, of course, than with Tottenham losing another game? No, not there. We're not going to begin. It was a remarkable loss.
We called them Tottenham as well.
I know, a double disrespect from me.
And I forgot to correct you. Thanks, JJ.
There you go. No, of course, but let's begin with Liverpool, who are, of course, the 2025 Premier League champion. I think that's how we should say that word today. It is, of course, Liverpool's 20th title, which brings them even Stevens with Manchester United as the joint most successful side in English top-flight history. Considering it's less than a year, I have to say, JJ, since Jurgen Klopp left Liverpool, and only less than a year since Arne Slot joined Liverpool. Whilst I don't think anyone was expecting the team to fall off a cliff because they've got great players and the squad wasn't in sort of horrible disarray last summer, I don't think anyone was expecting them to win the league, were they? They've been great for the last 8 months or whatever. But if we zoom all the way back out, it's a rather impressive achievement, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think he's done very well. Well done to him.
Well done to
Well
him.
done.
And to them. Anyway, what I'm saying is that obviously, of course, and this podcast is not going to pass without us talking about the fact that other teams have had terrible seasons. But that's all outside of Liverpool's control, right? But the stuff that is in Liverpool's control, they appear to have done, exceptionally well. The tweaks that Slot has made to the team that Klopp left him have been really positive. And at the very least, they've been as good as they were towards the end of last season. Maybe they've been a bit better.
So I think what you'll have read everywhere is that what Slot did when he came in was make some adjustments rather than transforming things. And that's probably the most sensible thing to do, because what Klopp was doing worked very well. He had a team with a winning mentality, with really great individual players that had a good team chemistry. You don't go in there if you're a good manager and try and break that up and start playing like a 3-4-3 and doing some wild thing. Did what seems very sensible, piggybacked off the back of it. It's kind of hard to even judge how good Slot even is, because he's come in and that's already there for him. So you'll see when he starts bringing in his own players and whether he can maintain that, which would be very difficult now in the modern Premier League era when everyone is very good. But there's subtle differences they've made. I think he's pointing out things like putting Gravenberch into that defensive midfield role that he played when he was younger, and Slot saw him do that apparently, so that he could see that. But if you play Football Manager, you knew that all along anyway. It's certain things that just made them look better. He's not played certain players, like Nunez hasn't been put in the team much, which has made them better, I think. And then Salah's turned into some sort of godlike creature who can just score from wherever he wants to. They're worthy champions, but everyone else did drop off.
Yeah, that is true. But what do you think is more impressive? Is it to come in to a team that isn't good at the end of a cycle and sort of build a team in your own image, in the image that you find most comfort with? Or is it cool to just hop in when, after a sort of a messianic type figure in Klopp, and just tweak a couple of bits, but largely go, let's keep it
Well, it
good.
could easily have gone wrong, right? Because you've seen it. When Moyes went into Man United and then I don't think he had the same level of squad, so that's one thing that makes it different.
Sure.
When they chucked Arsene Wenger out of Arsenal and then they put whoever else came in after that, and then that fell apart as well.
Emery,
there we go. So then that sort of thing does happen. You can lose the dynasty you've built. You can lose that in a heartbeat. And I think what Liverpool done very well is put in a manager who was similar enough to Klopp to take on what they already had. They didn't bring any new players, and he just worked with what he had, which was an already talented squad. So what you've got is a really good manager doing exactly what he probably should have done, who knows exactly what he's doing. There's some examples during the season where he changed things tactically that really helped him out. I think the example, I read that Athletic article that James Pearce wrote about the season so far, and how the Man City game was an example where the hierarchy felt they really got it right with Stocks. He changed a couple of bits and pieces.
Is he the only manager to have ever won the Premier League without doing a transfer?
That's a good question.
They did bring in Federico Chiesa. However, he has not started a league game all season, so the point
he's played
stands.
10
I'm
minutes.
just making sure your
Forget about
question
him
is
for
factual.
a second, but what other circumstance could there be? Because there's no one sacks the manager halfway through the season and then wins the league, right? Does anyone? When was the last time that a new manager of a team that won the league in their first season didn't sign any players in the summer they joined? Even David Moyes signed players.
Ancelotti at Chelsea, I can't remember who came in that summer, 2009 that would have been.
Let's find out.
If you want to...
In 09-10, Yuri Zhirkov, 21 million euros.
Oh.
Daniel Sturridge, 7.25 million
It's a lot
euros.
of money.
Nemanja Matic, 1.75. Ross Turnbull, free transfer.
Right, so he signed 4 players.
None of them were really that crucial to the starting 11, though, right? Zhirkov was okay. Sturridge never really made it at Chelsea. For a sustained period of time, he was better at Liverpool. Ross Turnbull was a backup goalkeeper.
And I'm just checking they won the league that year.
Yeah, so they won the double in Ancelotti's first year, but he inherited a team that already had Prime, Drogba, Lampard, Ballack, Mikel, Terry, Carvalho.
What a team.
Check. So, and Joe Cole.
Chelsea a bit of an outlier in that as well, that they replace their manager very regularly, right? So because I think one of the impressive things about what Liverpool have done is, I think a huge amount of credit has to go to Jurgen Klopp for stepping away at a point where the squad hadn't completely because you talk about the Ferguson leaving, they eventually just let the squad sort of wind down a bit, right?
Yeah.
Same with Arsene Wenger at Arsenal. I think Klopp leaving the year after they basically rebuilt the midfield. And I think it's important not to overstate the fact that they brought in four players the season before, right? That was it. They rebuilt their midfield, but they didn't do anything else.
Yeah.
So it's like 4 transfers in 2 seasons.
I guess they bought Nunez, didn't they, as well?
Yeah, but did they have him?
He's been there. This is his third season.
Oh, is it really?
So I think, they did an incredibly low number of transfers to rebuild their squad anyway. So I think that's impressive. But Klopp leaving at a point where he actually gave the incoming coach the sort of coming into peak cycle squad, relatively speaking, was impressive, because I think a lot of coaches would have just been like, I'm tempted to stay on because I feel as though we're probably in a good place going into this season. So I think
it's funny to think about that Ferguson team, though, isn't it? Because with the sort of the vintage of today, that Man United Fellaini team, that seems fun to think of, doesn't it? They were good.
Were they?
Because they finished 7th-ish. Yeah.
They were interesting. They still had good players in the team.
I was thinking even like why this Liverpool, because the Liverpool team were the best. They are the best team in the league this season.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's loads of reasons why it doesn't feel quite as exciting to non-Liverpool fans. Like other teams haven't been as good, which doesn't take away from them winning the league, obviously.
Yeah.
But there's something to it like that, and I wonder if it's that sort of Messi Ronaldo thing where they're so good, you just get used to it, and you're like, well, they're going to win because they're the best one. So then you feel less excited about it. Definitely not being in the Champions League right now takes something away from it. But
the fact that the race wasn't that close?
Yeah, I don't think it's the. I always think obviously the gap is part of it. But I always think it's about how the gap is created that's the more the impactful thing in terms of on like neutral fans' emotions. Because all that really happened is that Liverpool started well, continued playing well, and the gap was grown as other teams fell away. And Man City did that spectacularly. Arsenal did that sort of in boring drips and drabs throughout the season in a way that never really felt like a narrative in and of itself. But Liverpool were just the same the whole way through. Whereas I feel like there are other seasons where the team that wins it go on a run where they're better than they are for the rest of the season. The worst thing Liverpool did was be consistently good the whole way through.
And going out the Champions League, like you mentioned, losing the League Cup final and kind of their league form not taking a huge dip, but just like not being quite as good as it was earlier in the season. Everyone's recency bias makes that feel less impactful. And like the Messi Ronaldo thing that you mentioned is interesting, because like the team equivalent of that is almost Pep's City and Klopp's Liverpool when they were competing for titles and getting 98, 97 points, and they were like pushing each other constantly. That felt more exciting because it could have gone either way. So I guess the predictability of this is what makes it feel less exciting to neutrals, but that in itself is a compliment because Liverpool have had it wrapped up for so long.
I think that also contributes to why, obviously the Liverpool fans have been ramping up to the point at which they win confirms the title. Whereas for everyone else, we've known it's coming for such a long time that it's hard for neutrals to remain motivated for that long. And so what ends up happening is a gap emerges between how hyped the fans understandably are and how everyone else is like, okay, I feel like we've talked about Liverpool 3 or 4 times on this podcast since we've basically known they're going to win the league, and it's sort of hard to reiterate how good it is without sounding as though we're just going through the motions.
But it's a compliment to Liverpool that it's become almost dull, because it's just...
It's impressive.
I'm really excited now about Forest. Like, they could get Champions League football. That would be really cool. Like, that's not as good as winning the league, you know?
Yeah.
But that seems fun because it's new. It's because it's new, that's why.
It's because it's new.
I mean, new stuff.
Liverpool have done this 20 times.
Yeah, but they'll only
do something else, Liverpool. Jesus.
Twice in like the last 30 years or something, isn't it? Something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and the last time didn't even count. We all know that. Do you think it's more okay to make that joke now that Liverpool have officially won the Premier League in a way that does count?
We'll find out, won't we, Joe? We will find out.
It is quite funny that the last time...
Can I just say... I'm sorry to interrupt. I just want to say before I do get pelters, I don't even think that. It's just funny to say. Sorry, moving on.
But... It is funny also that the first time they won the Premier League, nobody could be there because of COVID. That in itself is not funny. But the second time that they won the Premier League, everyone was watching a different game because it clashed with the FA Cup semi-final.
That's weird, actually. John texted me. I was watching the Liverpool-Tottenham game because I thought that, well, this is the game in which the Premier League will be decided, and I should watch this one. And I had it on, and I was like, God, Tottenham are so bad. They were absolutely horrendous in this
Tottenham,
game.
yeah.
Huh? Oh, yeah, Tottenham, the team that play in Tottenham, were just dreadful. And I text John, and I was like, this is awful, isn't it? And he was like, I'm watching Forest Man City. He was like, why aren't you watching this game? I was like, because this is the game where the Premier League
But
is
everybody
decided.
knows that the FA Cup is the more prestigious competition.
I guess that's true. I mean, well, let's talk about Manchester City, the team that dropped off in the Premier League. They are in the FA Cup final. I guess they did beat Nottingham Forest, didn't they? But they've had a wibbly-wobbly old season. Is winning the FA Cup, is that really... Well, I suppose two different ways of looking at it. One is they've had a dog shit season and they win the FA Cup, potentially, if they beat Crystal Palace. I'm so sorry.
That's fine.
Or... what a disappointing outing for them.
I saw a tweet this morning that said Pep Guardiola is going to make 3 consecutive FA Cup finals, and for most managers that would be like the pinnacle of their career, and it's probably not even in his top 5 achievements.
Yeah, I feel sad about it.
They must be so bored of Wembley. Like, it must be such a chore. They didn't actually sell out their allocation, which I don't... Like, I'm not saying that as a dig. There was a big block of empty seats because their fans must be so bored of these expensive trips to Wembley where they just beat teams.
I guess if you're
and
given
win
the
cups.
option of going to Wembley for a semi-final or the final, and you think your team is probably going to get through to the final, you probably think, well, we'll hold back for the final. But it's I don't even know what I'm going to say.
Right.
I don't even know what I'm going to say, Joe.
They just do it all the time.
Well, it's ridiculous that fans are expected to be part of the team almost, but you have to pay. You don't get paid to be the fan. You have to pay so much money to do it.
You do get paid to be a fan.
Trains from Manchester to London. Do
spiritually.
you know how much they cost?
Are they expensive?
They're like, honestly, if you don't get the right time, they're like £500. You're like, well,
Yeah.
who on earth? It's a big block of metal on a rail. How the does that cost £500?
Capitalism, my friend.
You can fly a bus through the sky.
Yeah.
Cheaper,
I know.
Then on rails, that all you have to do is push go, it goes.
And there's only
Technically, you
one
can't fly a
person
bus
on the
through
rail.
the sky. I would just like to point out.
No, you can.
You can stick wings on the side of it and
Oh,
then
yeah.
put a Boeing logo there.
I think that would be more expensive.
That is how
though.
they make aeroplanes.
An aeroplane should cost way more. You should pay way
Yes.
more to fly through the air like a bird.
Yeah.
That should cost so much more.
Well, not
than
like
traveling along the ground like a faster snake.
a faster snake.
If you put rollerblades on a snake, it has the same
It's a
potential
train.
travel as a train.
Yeah.
If it's got a straight line for all the snakes to fly
And
down.
I bet all of its toilets would be busted and full of sick. You know,
Yeah.
the snakes' toilets.
I mean, people listen to will be having full out loud conversations on their phones.
Yeah.
Man City played well, though.
Who's that?
Manchester City.
Oh yes, of course.
They played well.
They played well, didn't they, against Nottingham Forest there?
Yeah. This was what I was hoping that we could then lead this on to, because John.
Is
wrote a
that what
script
you
about
wanted?
them,
What were you hoping?
that John would then explain what they did tactically.
Oh well, what I really care about though is that's good. Yeah, whatever. What are you gonna say? Say it.
No, I was just going to say I did a script on it. They changed the way that they played against them last month, and it worked out quite well. And
What against Forest?
yeah, I think City are starting to look a little bit inevitable again. You know. Well, I think what they did differently this time was they set up in a different way in the Premier League game that they played a month ago, which they actually lost to Forest.
Yeah.
They were just a lot narrower in their build-up, and it just meant they couldn't access central areas very well. Forest were able to force them into the wide areas. Forest are very good at box defending, right? So they're happy for teams to just move the ball into crossing situations and have their ginormous centre-backs clear the ball out with their heads. In this game, basically Pep changed things up and went with wide fullbacks, which is something he's been doing a bit more recently, and just opened up the space in the middle, and they scored a goal pretty early on just through playing through the middle and looking a little bit more dangerous. And it felt to me a little bit more like Forest play in a sort of quite zonal mid-block, and part of the reason why Pep's version of positional play has been so successful in the Premier League is that a lot of teams used to play like that in the past. So there's lots of space in between the lines that you could access, and you could progress the ball through, particularly through the centre, quite dangerously. It felt like one of those games again. So whether or not that's just part and parcel of Forest playing a little bit sort of old-fashioned football out of possession, and City just being able to get into their groove and being like, oh, well, we know what we're doing here. We know how to take this kind of block apart. I don't know, but I thought it was kind of interesting from that point of view.
How does playing wide fullbacks like open space in the middle? I get that you have fewer players in the middle, but isn't the idea of having players closer together that you can pass it easier?
Yeah. So in the first game, they inverted one of their fullbacks, so they had three players in their first line. City.
Yeah.
And Forest defend basically with the front four. And when City only had three in their first line of build-up, it meant that Forest could go quite narrow, and they could even drop one of their players out to help defend if they wanted to.
Right.
And then they sort of blocked out the middle and just forced wide. Whereas in this instance, because they had the two fullbacks wide, City, it meant that Forest had to have their wingers wider. So City pushed their fullbacks up, dragging the Forest wingers with them.
Right.
It meant that Forest's two forwards were on the two centre-backs, but City had two midfielders who could drop in, help out, and it meant that they then had this overload in the centre. And they were just much better, I think, using that structure to pull Forest's midfielders forward to create space between the midfield and the defensive line to then exploit them.
Is that the blueprint of how to beat Nottingham Forest then?
I guess so. I think Pep was asked after the game, like, will we see more of this? And he said something about how he didn't want to talk about it because he didn't want everyone stealing his ideas or something. I don't know whether or not that was tongue in cheek.
Did in the 5-2 win over Palace, did they do a similar thing? Because that was kind of the game that really turned them around a corner.
Yeah.
Right? Was it similarly set up?
So what they're doing now is they're using their fullbacks for width a lot more. So previous iterations of City, you've seen wingers form width, right? And often what ends up happening is that you can get the ball, if you go with your narrow build-up unit, so you invert one of your fullbacks, you get nice access into the wingers. But the problem is that the wingers are receiving often back to goal, often in static situations. And the idea is that they do stretch the opposition back line out so there is space to attack. But I think what we've started seeing happening with Pep now is that he's using his wide players much narrower, which is why we've seen less of Doku and Savinho on the pitch together. He's using them much narrower, opening up space for wing fullbacks to get into, which means they arrive a little bit more dynamically into that space, and it changes a lot of the sort of ideas that teams have been using recently. So it changes the tensions that exist between players who are being marked. So it's quite interesting. I thought that using fullbacks now has sort of gone full circle to, we used to invert them to, as you say, get everyone close in the middle.
It's all cyclical. It's all cyclical, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. So yeah, I think maybe we'll see City sign some traditional fullback profiles in the summer.
What do you think, JJ? I mean, do you think they'll be back up there next season?
I do think they'll be back up there. I think they'll make some exciting signings.
Yeah, because De Bruyne might be maybe not leaving.
He's definitely going. Yeah.
Is he definitely going?
He is definitely going.
Either way, he's old now.
He's like 33, which I don't think is that old, really.
I think he's older than that, isn't he?
You think so?
Let me just check.
I think he's 34.
Let's have a look. In my mind, he'll always be 33.
He is 33.
There we go.
But he's very soon to be 34.
Well, I was dealing with the now.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
You're living in the future.
I'm living over a year in the future. I thought he was 35 in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's it? The little that Yoda said to Luke Skywalker.
Lift this
stone.
No, this ship out of the swamp. Sea. And you will eat my shorts. Yeah, that's what he said.
Yeah, I remember that.
He was such a weird guy.
Weird bit of the film.
I don't know why he said that.
Do you guys see that clip of Australian TV with the twin sisters?
Yeah.
I did see
an
that,
interview and just both said the same words
exactly
like
the
that.
same time.
It's like they're sharing a brain, but then the very last thing, the word that they say, they chose different words. It was really weird.
The weirdest thing is that they were also talking about eating shorts.
Yeah,
that's the big coincidence. Yeah,
but yeah, I think in the summer, Man City will buy some players. I think they'll ship out a few as well that they don't really need around anymore. And I think you'll get a bit of a change. And I think Guardiola will figure things out, and they'll be right up battling with Liverpool. I think will be up there again, and Arsenal.
I think
all the teams that are big will be there.
There or thereabouts. Man United, you've heard it here first. They'll be back.
They'll be going down.
Oh, good Lord. Well, we're not talking about them today, nor are we talking about Tottenham, who also are bad. Although, come on, it's so funny. It is funny. Right, let's instead play the separation game. Tell us about that, Ruben, and then we'll go for a break.
Well, Steve and I have cooked up a fun one today.
You've been cooking?
Yes.
Oh.
FA Cup.
Like Walter White from Breaking Bad.
Not
yeah?
quite like that,
Oh.
no.
Or Delia Smith
Delia Smith.
More
in
like
Breaking Bad.
She was great in that.
Where are you? That's Jesse Pinkman doing
It's
Delia
good,
Smith.
it's a good impression of Delia Smith.
Let's be having.
Let's be having you, Mr. White. Promotion, yo. Right, so FA Cup themed separation game. Steve suggested that we start with Mr. Alan Pardew.
Alan Pardew?
Yeah, who-
What? Are we allowed to use him as a manager?
No.
No, so he has to be as a player. I don't think I've
Yeah.
ever watched him play.
And he scored a very famous
Played for
FA
Dolly
Cup
Chandler.
goal.
Did you know that?
I didn't know.
Yeah.
I'll start with that one then.
And we would like you to go from Alan Pardew to Manchester City's goal scorer in the semi-final, Josko Gvardiol,
Oh, okay, right.
which can be done. I have it in 5, including Pardew and Gvardiol.
Don't tell us how many you've got it in before we start.
Sorry.
Because that gives us hope that we can beat you.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's go to a break, and we'll be back just as soon as I have worked out how to do this.
Pardew to Gvardiol.
Okay, we're back from a break. I've got it. I think John's got it. JJ's still working on it. Ruben, over to you.
I'm impressed because Alan Pardew obviously played a very long time ago. And the reason he's been picked is obviously because he scored in an FA Cup semi-final for Crystal Palace before he then became a laughingstock for his silly little dance in the 2016 final, which Steve enjoyed sending me a GIF of yesterday when we were planning this. But
He's an FA Cup hero, really.
Steve?
to some.
No, not Steve.
No, Alan Pardew. All right, John, I want to hear yours first.
Yeah, so I got Alan Pardew. Alan Pardew spent a lot of time at Charlton, where he played with Lee Bowyer.
Did he? Did
When
they
he-
overlap?
Yeah,
Wow.
when they overlapped. Well, Lee Bowyer then went on to play for Newcastle, where he played with Jermaine Genius. Jermaine Genius played with Kyle Walker at Spurs, and Kyle Walker played with Josko.
Oh, you did it in 4? That's
Is that
4.
four?
Yeah, it's the clubs that you're counting. It's not the players.
Is that right?
Yeah,
Oh, well, I did.
surely it's the players because you can do
No.
era to era.
No,
Overlap.
it's the. Oh yeah, sure. It's the
There's
combination.
I've got
Yeah,
three
yeah.
players in between
it's,
the two
it's,
players.
It's the every line of your thing is like 2 players
Yeah, yeah.
either side
I
of
haven't
club.
had
That's
to be like
one.
they've
You've
shared this
you've
thing.
got 4 lines. The Baker number is films.
Okay.
It's not. Yeah. Oh,
Very good.
congratulations. Well done. 4. You've beaten me then. My route was I got it in 5. I started with Gvardiol at Leipzig because I thought
Oh, nice.
City's going to be the easy trick. I reckon there'll be something here at Leipzig. And there was, because Peter Galacci was there, obviously, who played at Liverpool with Fernando Torres,
Oh, that's nice.
who obviously played with Anelka at Chelsea, who played with Ian Wright at Arsenal, who played with Alan Pardew at Crystal Palace.
That's really cool. I
Did
like that one.
Galacci played for Tranmere Rovers at some point as well? Is
Let
that
me,
right?
let me just double check.
Okay.
That's my favourite route.
He was on loan at Tranmere Rovers, played 17 games. He was also on loan at Hereford United and Hull City.
That's crazy.
What a season.
The one that I had was Josko Gvardiol currently plays with Scott Carson
Oh yeah, nice.
at
Right.
Manchester City.
Right.
I mean, that's a bit stretchy when
I
you
don't
say
think
currently plays with them. But yeah,
Has Scott, didn't you say last week that
He has made a first team appearance for Manchester City, has he not?
this season?
Wow.
No, it has to be. It has to be in the season.
not
it
necessarily
doesn't.
this season.
No,
it
no,
could be
no,
the
no.
previous
We
season, right?
agreed last week that
As long as Gvardiol.
Hold on. We agreed last week that they don't have to have played in the same game, but both players have to have made at least one senior appearance this season
Together.
for the club. No, not together. Just either. Both of them have to have done. I don't.
But
Maybe
it could
Scott
be,
Carson
it could be
has.
a different season. It didn't need to be this season.
No,
If
no,
they-
it needs to
if
be
they'd
the
have
same.
both If they'd have both made an appearance,
They're
last
in the
season, it
same
would have been
squad.
fine.
I think
They're
it
in
needs
the
to be.
same
What
squad.
Steve,
I am kind of
JJ?
breaking
What
my
do you
own
think?
rules here.
I think that's. I think if you haven't played,
I've done it.
I
He
agree
said
with. I do agree with you, but I do think that Gvardiol has been here for more than this season, so it could have been last season. But I don't think so.
Yeah,
when
but
was
to
it-
have played
when was
in
the
the
last
same
time?
team,
When
I
was I don't. Well, I think that's
Well,
too
they-
complicated to work
They have to have
out.
played in the same season. Have to have played a game. I think.
Right, but like, has
do we know
Scott?
if-
When
I
was the
don't
last
know.
time
Scott
Scott Carson
Carson
played a
has
game?
made 2 appearances for Manchester City,
Yeah.
and none of them were in the Premier League. I think they were
When were they though?
When were they?
friendlies. 21-22, which was before Gvardiol arrived. So I've actually not done it.
All right, let's.
But what
I
I
think
have-
for future reference, my opinion would be that the player has to, because otherwise, maybe you don't need to. We'll take a poll. We'll take a poll of like people can leave in the comments like whether they think
I have previously insisted that I think first team appearance was the rule, so I have now broken
in the
it
same
because
season.
it-
First team appearance in the same season,
but it doesn't have to be
Yeah.
the same game.
No,
No.
yeah. Okay. Well, if the rules were different, then I would have had it, and I make the game, so that's bad. But anyway, Carson was on loan at Aston Villa in 07-08, where he played with Gareth Barry, who played with Gareth Southgate at Villa as well. Southgate played with Pardew at Palace.
That's
So
nice.
it would have been good.
But yeah, I thought about going the Southgate route as well, but then I didn't in the end. It's worth saying someone emailed us in. You know, last week we sort of joked that wouldn't it be great if someone built an app that helps us do this. Someone very kindly did email in. However, we operate under very stringent security here, and I have to check stuff like that past the company digital security team, and they said that they couldn't be sure that it was safe to use on company laptops. So I haven't been able to open it. I'm really sorry to the person that sent that in. Thank you. If I'm certain it's genuine. What a bizarre cyber attack attempt that would be. But thank you so much for doing that. And hey, if you were ever to host that somewhere that we might be able to access it rather than having to open the program on our computer, then that would probably be a different situation. But thanks for sending.
Maybe
it
use a
in.
phone to at the live show.
Yeah,
They
exactly.
messaged me, I think.
Yeah.
That's right.
That's the
Let's
one.
hear your
Forward.
route, JJ.
So Josko Gvardiol. So where we start? We'll start with Gvardiol. He played at RB Leipzig before, at the same time as Angelino.
Yes.
Then went to Man City. So we're going back the way. And then Gabriel Jesus played at Man City with Angelino, and then he went to Arsenal. And then at Arsenal, Jorginho is there at the same time as Jesus, and Jorginho was at Chelsea. At the same time, Cesc Fabregas was also at Chelsea, and he went to Arsenal, where Martin Keown lived.
Yeah.
And Martin Keown lived at Arsenal at the same time that Ian Wright did.
Yeah.
And Ian Wright also played for Crystal Palace with Alan Pardew.
There you go.
Did you really need Angelino to get Guardiola to
It's
Man
the same
City?
because Guardiola and Jesus didn't play together,
they
right?
didn't overlap.
So
Did
you
they
might
not? Did they not overlap
they
at all?
didn't
I don't
overlap.
think so.
I couldn't think of an Arsenal one that maybe was there exactly at the same time, just in case. So.
Gvardiol's come up in this game before. Someone tried to
Yeah.
claim an overlap with Jesus and it wasn't there.
I think Gvardiol joined in 23. This is his second season.
I just wanted a
And
long,
Jesus left in 22.
interesting one.
It's nice.
Thanks.
Like a snake on roller skates. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just wonder if Fabregas and Keown definitely did overlap at Arsenal.
I just love the game.
Fabregas
Yes.
played in
Yeah,
03
yeah,
or 4 in
yeah.
the
03 or
League
04,
Cup.
yeah.
Fair play.
There you go.
Just check.
What a fun game. I like the game because of the different routes you can take. It
Much
makes you
like-
think about the history of the game.
I think that going for an old player is good because it makes it. I think sometimes
You would
the other
think
ones-
that.
Well, I think sometimes it becomes a bit more obvious when it's like get from this player to this player. You end up doing similar sorts of routes. But
Yeah. Well, speaking of similar sorts of routes, that doesn't work at all. Crystal Palace 3-0 Aston Villa. Now, I didn't watch this game, Ruben, but because I said I was down on the
How
south
dare
coast
you.
at the weekend, and I saw a man in a pub who was wearing a Crystal Palace shirt, didn't know the score, so I tapped him on the shoulder and I said, "What was the score?" And he screamed 3-0 in my face, and he looked like the happiest man I've ever seen. So I assume you were that man, but elsewhere.
Yeah, it was a very, very happy day. And an incredible performance, to be honest. Like, I wasn't that optimistic. Like, I'm a natural pessimist. Maybe that's like expectation control, you know.
Sure.
But
I
wasn't
think it's reasonable to be pessimistic about that because Aston Villa are a better
a good
team, aren't they? So
yeah.
you know,
Well, I mean, they weren't on
it's
Saturday.
It's
That's-
weird that Palace won that game.
It is, yeah, but it did happen. But like, you know, we conceded 5 goals to City recently. We conceded 5 goals to Newcastle recently. That midweek game against Arsenal being just a few days before the semi-final wasn't ideal from like a potential risk of injury point of view, but getting a 2-2 draw against a good team was hugely important for like the belief that the semi-final would then go well. And nobody got injured. Wharton was able to play 88 minutes, I think, which Wharton's actually not finished a 90 in like 8 months or however long he's been back because of his fitness issues. But the performances, everybody stepped up a level. Everyone did their job really well. I don't know, I haven't seen XG numbers, but it felt like we didn't give up that many great opportunities. There was an incredible moment right towards the end when Ross Barkley was shaping up for a shot, and in his own box, Jean-Philippe Mateta makes a sliding block, and it was that, you know, that really epitomised the day. It was our best performance of the season. It came at the right time, which, you know, like I say, given the results in the last few weeks, that had made me pessimistic, it now felt like, they were just all saving it up for this. And yeah, like atmosphere was incredible. Just a wonderful day as a Palace fan.
That's nice. Well, the FA Cup final is played on the 17th of May, right? Mm-hmm. Which I always didn't it always used to be after the end of the Premier League?
It's a week before
And
now.
it should be.
Before.
It should be.
It really should be afterwards, shouldn't
And
it?
the TV coverage should be all day.
Yeah.
And it should be a whole thing, an event, and you care about it. It's on free to air. It's good, but now.
Well, I'll tell you
don't
what.
ask me to shoot a vox pop that day.
No,
I will not be in a fit state.
what I was going to say is the following Saturday is the Tifo live show at the Walthamstow Soho Theatre. The Soho Theatre in Walthamstow, which is in London, by the way. So if you live in London, come.
But don't go to Soho.
It'll be a week after. We'll be able to talk about your Palace. I mean, listen, getting to an FA Cup final and playing against Manchester City is not something that is a definite lose situation. That's a stupid way of putting that. But I remember the Wigan game was in the FA Cup, wasn't it?
Yeah, 2013.
I remember that Wigan
And do you know
game.
who scored the winner that day?
Was it Charles and Zogbia?
No, it was former Palace player Ben Watson.
Was it? Oh, that's nice.
Yeah.
So it's possible, isn't it? I mean, do you think there's any hope, John?
I mean, it's the season to play City in, isn't it? I know we've talked about them looking a little bit more inevitable recently, but even in their game, when once Forest decided to throw on some direct attacking players, they looked a little bit shaky. I mean, they were 2-0 up at that point.
Forest hit the post 3 times, and it could have gone differently.
It's a funny game because they went 2-0 up and basically dominated the game in pretty much every scenario up until that point. So I guess the game state did have an effect there, but yeah, I think if Forest come and do what they did to Palace, but if Palace do go to Wembley and do what they did to Villa to City, I think that anyone has a chance in those circumstances. I actually thought it was, like you said, it was just a brilliant performance from them, and it was a brilliant performance from an out of possession point of view, which I think most people probably don't enjoy. I tend to enjoy those kind of performances, but they had less of the ball. They made sure they stopped Villa from doing what Villa do so well, which is baiting presses forward and tempting the opponent to come out and go after them and create space that they can then attack. They just sat in a really aggressive mid block and they were like, come at us, and Villa had nothing.
And the first 2 goals came from really well timed pressing. Right, the Eze one came from Sarr winning the ball quite high up the pitch when Villa's fullbacks were, I guess, quite further up and not able to help out defensively. And then the third one,
up,
the third one felt that's a classic injury time goal.
With the other team pressing.
I thought the third goal was actually weirdly more of a foul than the one that got disallowed for a foul in the first half. But yeah, the pressing was all really well timed, and Wharton and Daichi Kamada stepping in to play central midfield in that game, which normally he's played a bit further forward in kind of as a backup to Eze, but to play as an 8 alongside Wharton in his game in the absence of Hughes and Lerma. Hughes came on, but that was the worrying selection that we thought, or maybe that's where Villa will have more joy. But I thought Kamada stepped up and played really well as well. Yeah,
just really nice to see a team who are like super well coached off the ball. It's hard to do that kind of thing well. Ahmed Walad's written a piece on our site just breaking down the pressing from Palace, which I recommend people go and read. But it's so hard to get your team working collectively in that way. I think people think, all you have to do is get the players to sort of be roughly in the right areas. But one thing that's really stood out for me with Palace is how good they are at the timing element as well. So it's not just about being in the right place. You have to be in the right place at the right time. And that just, I think, shows a coach who's really working well.
And one more interesting thing looking ahead to the final is obviously after the 5-2 game in the Premier League, Glasner said that he's said to Pep Guardiola, if we meet in the final, then you won't be able to play the same system because I'll have worked it out. So there might be a more interesting tactical battle because they're both going to be tweaking things to try and exploit the other's weaknesses.
Sounds like a 0-0 penalty win to City to me. Hey?
Well, Haaland's back in training apparently. So.
Oh no, he's going to eat you. Right. A quick word on Aston Villa, not a longie, but a quick one. Just because it's quite interesting, isn't it, that the extent to which where they've ended where they will be ending their season. At the beginning, they were obviously in the Champions League. They went deep in some of the cup competitions. Of course, they just lost to Crystal Palace in the semi-final of the FA Cup. They, at times throughout the season, were situated in that top 4. Currently, they're 7th, just outside, with a 4-point gap to 4th place. 3-point gap to 5th place, so it's still possible to qualify for the Champions League again. But going from the first half of the season thinking like this could maybe be like one of the best years Aston Villa's ever had as a club, or as a club in the last 20 in the Premier League era. What would you actually be feeling if you're a Villa fan now? Because it's possible that they've sort of lost out they've done quite well everywhere, but then lost out everywhere without sort of specialising in one area. Do you know what I mean? How would you assess it if you were an Aston Villa fan? Is this a good season? Is this a disappointment in some ways?
They're in a moment.
Yeah.
They're building to get wherever they're going next.
Yeah.
And you can't win everything all of the time.
No.
Like, again, if you look at like what last season was, they finished on, was it 68 points, I think it was? Let's have a look. 68 points finished on. They are currently on
57.
57. So if they win all 4 of their games, they finish on
70. 69.
69.
Yeah.
And nice.
They would better.
Nice.
Did you just say nice? Did you stop talking?
Yeah, because you're leaving room to John to make the joke.
Oh, because I said 69. Is that why you said nice?
Yes.
I didn't get it straight away
because he said it in such a subtle way that it might have been interpreted as just a comment. But it was
I
also
thought we'd all leave it because that is the thing you would normally say, but by not saying it, it makes it more funny by not saying it.
I didn't even think about it. I just
that's good.
It's just a number to me.
Yeah, that's good.
69. Hey, do you
want to talk about Villa?
Let's have a guessing game now. Ruben, you're banned from this because you will know the answers already. Obviously, we said that the last time Crystal Palace were in an FA Cup final was 2016, the famous Pardew dancing moment. They did lose 2-1 to Manchester United. I'd love to hear from JJ and John some guesses as to members of the starting 11 here on these
Palace.
teams.
Some fun names on both teams.
What was the game, sorry?
Were you not listening?
Was this the Louis van Gaal one?
Yes, this was 2016.
Okay, there's 2 different games here. John will play the game I explained. You will play the game where you work out from John's answers what the game is.
I like
okay?
that.
Now, John, go.
Did Marouane Fellaini play in that?
Yes, that's correct, at number 10.
Did Adnan Januzaj play?
No, Januzaj did not play, although he might have been on the bench. He he didn't start. Actually, I think Januzaj was gone by then.
Potentially.
2016. He was a 2013
he played
guy.
that season. 13-14 under Moyes was his breakthrough.
Yeah.
Ibrahimovic, was he that season?
Nope.
It was
Was he Van Gaal?
that summer. No, it was that summer when Mourinho arrived
Mourinho.
there.
That's
yeah.
Mourinho.
This was the FA Cup that Louis van Gaal won and then was sacked afterwards.
Yeah. Johnny Evans.
Johnny Evans, I think, is gone by this point.
Yeah,
he's
at West
at
Brom.
Everton.
But he's still
West Brom.
there, Joe.
No, yeah, he's gone back.
There.
He's gone back.
I can name one.
Yeah.
Marcos Rojo.
Marcos
Correct.
Rojo was there. He played at left back. Yeah.
Eric Bailly.
Eric Bailly wasn't there. Don't think he's
Not
joined
doing very
yet.
well.
He signed that summer.
Yeah. I think he was
Luke Shaw.
Luke Shaw. I
No,
think
that was his leg break season.
probably injured. Yeah, wasn't playing.
Was that not the following one? Was that not Mourinho?
No.
You're missing some like massive players.
Pogba.
No, Pogba signed
He
under
also signed that summer.
Mourinho's.
Can we do the game next season when I've named all of the starting 11?
No. Well, what about Wayne Rooney?
Wayne Rooney.
Yeah.
What about other Man United players?
You hate United.
Legendary central midfielder, didn't get enough caps for England.
Hargreaves.
No.
Come on, man.
In 2016.
Scholes.
No.
Michael Carrick.
There you go.
Thank you,
Michael Carrick.
Yeah, okay. Don't let the tone of your voice trail to weakness as though you're trying to pretend you don't care about the game. I know you care.
I do. I just don't remember.
What about the Palace team?
Remembering things.
I'm the same as John.
Jason Punchin.
Punchin wasn't in the
Controversially
team.
dropped for that game, came off the bench and
But
scored.
he was there at that time.
Yeah,
That'll do me.
He played,
He scored.
but he didn't start.
Oh, right. He scored. Yeah, there we go. Well, I've won then, right?
No.
Cool. Moving on.
Do you want to guess any?
Alan Pardew, Ian Wright, Gareth Southgate, Dougie Friedman,
Mark
Attilio
Wright.
Lombardo.
Oh, my God. So Michael
Nathaniel
Carrick,
Klein.
obviously. David
Michael
De
Carrick
Gea.
doesn't play for Palace.
David De Gea.
Wayne Rooney.
Antonio Valencia, Chris Smalling. Dally Blint was there.
Oh, wow.
Anthony Martial. Marcus Rashford started that game. And then for Palace, Connor Wickham up front.
Wow.
We had Yannick Bolasie, Johan Kabay,
Oh,
was a
Zaha
great player.
He used to play in black
Zaha,
and white.
of
I don't know
course.
why.
Joel
MacArthur,
Ward.
Jedinak, Delaney, Dan.
Tompkins.
Ward.
No?
Yeah, Ward you got.
Tompkins arrived
and,
that summer.
And Soiree. Was it Soiree?
Pap Soiree, yeah.
Pap Soiree.
Who then later broke his femur in a car accident.
And Wayne Hennessy. So, you'd both lost the game. Hey, you know who else has lost the game? It's Carlo Ancelotti. Well, I mean, he didn't lose it on his own, but his Real Madrid side did lose the Copa del Rey final to an insect landed on my microphone to Barcelona. It's turning out to be a rather rotten season for Real Madrid in some ways, isn't it? In fact, I think this will be. They're very unlikely to win La Liga. They're obviously been. I mean, I think fair to say, hammered out of the Champions League by Arsenal. This is the first season in a handful, in a few, where they haven't won a trophy. It's oddly rare for Real Madrid to get the end of a season and not win even one of those 3 trophies. So a bit of a shitter. And I think didn't Mario
Cortegana.
Yeah, well, I actually wasn't trying to think of his name. I was trying to think of what to say next. Didn't Mario publish some news yesterday?
Yes,
about Ancelotti.
He did. Yeah,
what did he
Ancelotti's set to leave Real Madrid at the end of the season.
Right.
Take over as Brazil manager, not necessarily for the long term, but I think Brazil are just worried about having somebody good in charge for the US World Cup.
Right.
But yeah, it's been a disappointing season, and that's what happens at Real Madrid if you don't win a trophy. You get chopped.
This is Brazil's 4th ever non-Brazilian manager, right? And the last one was years ago, I think.
I don't remember who the last one was. No,
I think the first one was like in the 30s or the 20s or something.
My first thought when I saw that he was likely to go to Brazil was, how's his Portuguese? Because his English is excellent.
Yeah.
I'm sure his French is very good from his time at PSG.
Yeah.
I'm sure his Spanish is now fluent. But how's his Portuguese?
Well, I guess the real question is, does he speak the language of Vinicius Jr.? And he seems to.
He seems to, yeah. The last few years would suggest so.
Yeah.
I think Vinicius Jr. speaks Portuguese as well.
Right.
Yes,
yeah.
obviously.
No, I understand that.
That's just asking Ruben's question in a different way.
Unless he has developed his own language that only he and
He
Ancelotti
does
know.
speak Brazilian Portuguese, which I'm led to believe is very different from Portuguese.
That's right. And Portuguese people will tell you that Brazilian Portuguese is bad. Yeah. I've never thought about it like that before. I spoke to Portuguese people about it. And then the best way that they could describe it to me was as though, think about what an American sounds like to me. And then it's like that. Do you know what I mean?
I was watching a clip on social media the other day about there's an island in the US where they still speak like oldish English because they were settled by pirates or something and had no links to
I want to go there.
the outside world. And there was clips of this guy speaking. It's like proper.
Really?
Yeah.
How far off the mainland is it?
I don't think it's that far. I think it's just a really like rural like fishing coastal place. So I guess
Really?
northeast somewhere. But
Fishing coastal.
The pub's called the Jolly Roger.
Yeah.
There's a good YouTube video in that, just going there and speaking to people.
Peter Santinelli's got it covered.
Yeah.
That guy. Yeah. Alas. Well, anyway, back to Real Madrid. They've had a rubbish season. They did buy the, quote, best player in the world at the beginning of this season. That was supposed to be sort of the final piece in the puzzle. Feels very much like the first piece in a new puzzle, JJ. So what do you think about that?
Well, I think they've spent a lot of time focusing on the forwards. They've also lost Toni Kroos, and Luka Modric is on his way out. So the transition period between former champions who won like 3 or 4 Champions Leagues in a row and what you've got now is underway. They'll need to buy a bunch of new defenders, I would have thought, and sort of build that bit because it's really important. They've got a couple coming through. Raul Asensio looks like quite a good player, and his name sounds like 100% like a regen football manager.
Absolutely.
Like it's obviously what he is. The same problems with everyone's talked about forever. When you have all those talented players up front together, can you really play under a system? You had Thibaut Courtois talking a lot about how they need to probably get to playing like a team rather than relying on individual magic in the final third. But how do you get the best out of the individual players unless you're letting them do what they want to be able to do? The same reason that Ancelotti's hired is often the reason he's let go. So you'll get someone in wants to come in, maybe make it a system kind of like everyone's pressing, defending together like you probably should, but are you going to get the most out of your players that way? Do you become like everyone else and lose some of the identity of what you have there? And then I think like one of the good examples that like Bellingham, the champion, the hero, who gets his pass cut out for one of the Pedri goal, basically, then just stands there like emoting while the whole team moves up the pitch. Pedri runs up, Bellingham walks backwards, Pedri ends up finishing from 22 yards. Like he is one of the best players in the world.
Completely unmarked. Because all 3 of Real Madrid's central midfielders have been dragged towards Lamine Yamal, but don't actually try to tackle him. So then Pedri has this huge amount of space, doesn't he?
Yeah, but and the thing I was trying to point I was trying to make there was like Bellingham was the one who lost the ball and should have been tracking him, whereas that's what Pedri probably would have done in reverse. And so you have Barcelona is very much a team that works with the component parts to become a better monster, like when the Power Rangers put all their robots together.
Yeah.
Whereas I would say Real Madrid are probably really powerful robots, but separately.
Right.
And they are like they could have ended every single episode of that show if they just built the big robot first and stood on the monster that comes down.
Do you know what? It sounds like a silly analogy, but in some ways I think it's quite apt, isn't it? Because when the Power Rangers are separate, they can spread more thinly across the ground. They could fight a smaller array of multiple enemies,
Yes.
like a mid-table La Liga team, no problem. But when you come up against Arsenal, which is all one big monster and all assembled into a big thing, you got to be a big thing, or you're going to get crushed. You know, that's why the analogy works, isn't it?
That's exactly why I used it.
Real Madrid remind me of when you see somebody driving like a Lamborghini through central London.
Yeah.
Like, nice to have, but this is not practical, you know?
I hate that person that does that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It sort of feels like very showy, doesn't it? But then any car is quite showy, isn't it? Having any car.
But it's ostentatious and there's no logic to it, you know?
No.
What are the appropriate
cars to drive?
Context for a Lamborghini to drive in then, if they're not allowed to drive in even London?
The Autobahn in Germany or a track. Like, nobody needs a Lamborghini in London.
I think
driving in London...
Road through the desert into Dubai, that feels like where the Lamborghini belongs, you know?
Yeah.
I feel like I would like to drive a Lamborghini into Dubai.
That's what Real Madrid remind me of. That's the whole vibe that their current squad building has given off. And like JJ says, they're going to have to make a lot of changes in the summer under a new coach, which we don't really know who that's going to be. And the type of coach that they hire, I think they need obviously more structure, but how that will go down with some of their star players like Bellingham and Mbappe is
I wonder if they do even need more structure. Honestly, if they just had a settled like back four who you could rely on, you can still. I don't think there's anything wrong with doing what Ancelotti's done and having individuals. Like, you can't rely on individual stuff all of the time, but they managed to win loads of games doing exactly what people have said they can't do, and win loads of titles doing it.
True, injuries haven't helped. That's been a huge issue this summer, but that's been exacerbated by a lack of investment from post, like Kroos retiring and things like that. Like, some of the makeshift defensives they've put together this season, like Valverde's like the heart, who should be the heartbeat of their midfield, has had to play loads at right back. Tchouameni's had to play loads at centre back. Federico Valverde, who should be the heartbeat of their midfield and in that kind of box-to-box role, he's had to play loads at right back after Carvalho's ACL injury. Tchouameni's had to play at centre back a lot. Rudiger has been playing through a lot of pain. So these things exacerbate the problems that arise when you don't have a set system. Whereas, like, if they had fewer injuries or more depth, then maybe these problems wouldn't look so obvious.
Rudiger should have held on to his ice, shouldn't he?
He really should have done, yeah.
If he was in pain. Let's play Points Are Bad, and then we can all go home. Next week, by the way, I'll tell you while I remember, we're releasing the episode on probably a little bit later in the day on Wednesday, because there's a bank holiday and a public holiday in the UK, so we'll be recording it on a Tuesday, popping it out later on a Wednesday. Right, Points Are Bad. Where did we get up to last time? Oh, you'll remember, JJ, the last time we played this, it was Real Madrid, Arsenal, and it was Hearts, Aberdeen. Those were the games. Have we been off for a week?
Yeah,
we had a week off.
I was off, so yeah.
You were off, and then we didn't do a podcast. No, right, okay.
There was a bank. It was Easter.
I thought I might have gone completely mad for almost this whole last hour, but no, it makes sense. We just weren't here last week, right? So the last time we played, it was Real Madrid, Arsenal, Hearts, Aberdeen. Let me have a look at the total added scores. JJ, sadly, you were in a losing place this week. You added 6. So while I'm talking through the rest of these scores, can you please find 2 games for us to predict for this week? You did say Real Madrid 5-1 against Arsenal, and Arsenal won that game 2-1, as you'll remember.
I was close.
You said Aberdeen 2-0, and it was 2-1 to Aberdeen, so congratulations. Seb, as played by Ruben, I assume, unless it was actually Seb. No, it was Ruben. Added 5. Congratulations, Seb and Ruben. Ruben Stafford Bloor. It was close between us, John. It was close between us. There was only 1 point in it. One of us added 3. The other added 4.
I like to think that the better man won.
Yeah, the better man did win. It was you. You won by only adding 3 points. That's because you predicted 1-1 for Real Madrid Arsenal, which is a real cop-out score, if you ask me. Only a massive, massive loser does that. And for Hearts Aberdeen, you predicted 2-1 to Hearts, which was like the complete opposite inverse of the score. So actually, in this specific week, I would say, spirit of the game, you probably weren't the better man.
Well,
I predicted
you said,
2-0 to Real Madrid.
Which didn't happen.
No, it didn't happen, but it was wrong.
Yeah.
And I did it for fun. Do you remember it was a spirit of the game pick because I was trying to upset Steve Hankey?
2-0 is not a spirit of the game.
It was because it was going to be 2-0 from 70 minutes, and then it was going to be Steve Hankey's worst 25 minutes of his life, while Arsenal held on to an inevitable
What about
victory.
the other result?
I said 1-1 for the other
which
result.
wasn't correct. So.
No, it was just one off, though, wasn't I? One off, though. Anyway, that means the final scores as it stands. JJ, you're on 169.
Nice.
Seb's on 145.
Ah, yes.
Well done.
I'm
yeah.
happy about that.
Well done, Blore. John, you're on 128. I'm on 123. You got some catching up to do, man. And what is there? There's only 4 games left, right? There's 4 points of bad left. This is a Premier League game. We're not playing on to the Champions League final. We will be done.
But we always pick games that aren't in the Premier League, though.
Yeah, that is true. But we'll be done. We'll be done. Do you know what? We'll do our final picking for points of bad. We might not be able to do it on the live show because of the timings and stuff. Anyway, we'll be doing it that week. It's getting exciting. It's getting exciting. Right, what are our games, JJ, for this week, please?
Barcelona versus Inter Milan.
Champions League semi-final.
Semi-final on the Wednesday.
That's on Wednesday.
Yeah.
What's the Tuesday game?
It's the other one, Arsenal versus Paris.
Joking.
I just forget. I've been off for a week.
That's tomorrow, yeah.
Wow.
Good fun.
Wow.
So you've picked Barca Inter.
I have picked that one, yes.
Okay, and what's the second game?
I think we should do Athletic Club versus Manchester United.
That's on Thursday.
Yes.
Is that also a semi-final?
Yes.
Yeah. Wow, these are this week has got some great football, hasn't it?
I know. I want to do loads of things in the evening, but now I can't do
No,
those.
you can't. Yeah. Right, okay. You're up first, please, JJ. Selection, please, for Barcelona Inter.
3-2.
3-2 Barcelona.
It's either 0-0 or 3-2, and I prefer that.
Yeah, 3-2 is fun.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a wild, insane shout for this game. All right, and the other game is Athletic versus Man United, right?
Athletic Club versus Manchester United. 2-0 Athletic Club.
Yeah, it's reasonable. That's a reasonable guess. Okay, Ruben Stafford Bloor.
Barcelona 1, Internazionale 1.
Yeah, fair.
Inter have a very strong defence.
How are you feeling about that pick?
I'm feeling a bit hot under the collar about that, I'll be
Yeah.
honest with you. Don't like it.
You have to rethink.
I think
Other people have to be allowed to pick that score.
No, I know. It's a good score for this game.
Yeah.
You're allowed to pick
Yeah,
it.
okay, good.
I'm allowed to not like it.
Yeah, absolutely fine.
Right, what's
For
the other game?
Athletic Club de Bilbao. Actually, that's not actually
One-
a name. Athletic
one-
Club
one?
1.
It is their name, isn't it? Athletic Club.
I don't know.
Bilbao.
On the site now, we have to call them of Bilbao, I think, because it doesn't have the city name in their name. Anyway, 2-1 to Athletic Club.
Wow. Okay. Right, me next. Barcelona Inter. I think. What are you doing? Why are you making that face at me? I think it's going to be 2-1 to Inter. I think 1-2 is the scoreline here. I think Inter are going to the final. And I think they're going to beat Arsenal in
They
the
lost
final.
You were aware they've lost.
They lost
games
3-0
now.
to AC Milan in the Cup the other day, and they lost 1-0 to Roma at the weekend, which
Yeah,
has
they're
put
saving
the
it up.
title in
They're
Napoli's
saving it. That's how
hands.
football works, guys. Okay, and the other game is Athletic Club versus Manchester United
In Bilbao.
in Bilbao.
Does Bill know about that?
1-1. John?
I'm going to go 2-1 Barca.
2-1 Barca. Okay, and then Athletic Club versus Man United. Someone's got to predict a United victory here.
Yeah, someone doesn't. It's not going to be me. 1-0 Bilbao.
1-0 Bilbao. Okay.
Just to annoy everyone who hates them being called Bilbao.
By the way, Man United are definitely going through. They're definitely going through. Maybe they won't win the game in Bilbao, But I'm so confident that they're going to be in the final.
Do you
against
think they'll have
Spurs.
to chuck Harry Maguire up top again to make
Maybe
it happen?
Yeah, he's
whatever
done really
whatever
well.
they do, they'll do. You know,
They'll go through if the other team goes down to 10 men,
Right.
which is probably what could happen.
It's possible.
Yeah.
If they commit a foul that means one of their players gets sent off, then that will happen.
And then
Yeah.
they'll lose to Bodo Glimt in the final.
Right.
That'd
There
be
we
good.
go. Big shouts all round. Okay, that was Points Are Bad. This has been the Tifo Football podcast. Thanks to JJ
Yes.
and John
Yes.
and Ruben Stafford-Bloor.
Yeah.
And, of course, me. I was looked at Steve Hankey to upset him there. Hey, and Steve Hankey.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, all right. We'll be back next week on the Wednesday. Reminder that you can buy tickets to the live show in London on May the 24th. Saturday just before the end of the Premier League season. That's going to be an exciting day. And come and join us. And hopefully we'll see you there. And if not, we'll see you next week. Ta-ta!